While we produce, we pollute, we make goods that quickly become obsolete. Consumers throw these products away, along with the resources used to make them, and replace them with the latest model, requiring still more resources.
The changes in the biosphere, the degradation of the biosphere, the ecological systems that I've just been referring to, it is inevitable that they are going to create huge change for human civilization and society. But they are not the only sources of change, so I just want briefly now to go over what they are. So our intervention in the carbon cycle is undoubtedly, in my view, not very well understood, and that is bringing about future climate change. I believe that climate change is already underway, and the first things we see are extreme weather events of various kinds, droughts, storms, and so forth. I know that there is an ongoing debate about the reasons for global warming. Incidentally, there is no debate whatever about global warming taking place. But there is some debate about the extent to which human intervention through the emission of greenhouse gases has been causing that. In my mind, we should simply get over that, recognise that there's huge risk to human living as we know it, and begin to discuss matters of mitigation and adaptation, and get beyond that rather silly debate. So that is one. Climate change is a big one. Changes in our oceans is another huge one, in that the environment for our fisheries and environment for the absorption of carbon dioxide is changing, with the oceans warming and becoming more acid. So that is another very great change. Other aspects of degradation are there as well, including the ways in which other toxins are or are not going to be absorbed, and so there are changes there which relate directly to human health as well as the health of a lot of other species. There is another great source of change which is essentially upon us, and this relates to our energy. When I mean our, human civilization's strong dependency, you might say almost an addiction, to the use of hydrocarbons, coal, oil and gas, at the present time, is resulting, whether we go for a sustainable future or not, is inevitably resulting in a rapid future upward trend in the prices of those sources of energy, and considerable volatility around those trends. So this means that economic activity as we know it at the present time is going to be subjected to much higher prices for energy and considerably more variation around those prices. Now, we should also expect some substitution of those hydrocarbons by carbohydrates, by other forms of energy that come from vegetable sources, from plants, as well as renewable sources, wind, wave power, perhaps geothermal can be included in that, and even nuclear as a possibility, even though that's got many downside risks as well. But the overwhelming analysis demonstrates that all of those renewables, while laudable and while coming along, will not be available in sufficient scale or at levels of cost which will prevent the overall cost of energy, especially liquid fuels, rising very substantially. My own thought is that within 5 years the price of petrol or diesel will be at least 3 times what it is at the moment, and that will be if we're very lucky. 7 to 10 years, perhaps 7 times higher. This will have a remarkable effect on the viability of a lot of sectors and industries that human beings rely on at the present time. global warming and climate change, will come situations where the supplies, the availability of water, particularly potable water, available for human consumption, clean water for industry, will decline. It is already declining in several parts of the world, and this water comes from several sources. A lot of it comes from catchments, and into lake systems, even dams and so forth, which require a reliable source of rainfall. Climate change is in the course now of changing those rainfall patterns, and in some parts of the world there will be more water than can be utilised because the storage systems are not up to it. In other parts of the world there will be drought and insufficient water can be collected. Some of the sources of water for human consumption are glaciers, and there is some contention about this, but as an overall statement, glaciers in the high mountains on a global basis are retreating. In other words, they are melting. And the result of this is a bit perverse, in that in the first instance, as they melt faster, they will supply more water downstream. But as the glaciers diminish in size, then they will provide less and less water. And the prospect is that over the decades to come, that is the process that we can expect. The other major source of water for human consumption, and particularly for agriculture, but also for urban areas, is artesian water, water coming from aquifers, from often quite deep sources underground. And there is a very disturbing pattern in many parts of the world with these aquifers, in that their levels are dropping. There is still water there, but it's at deeper, ever deeper and deeper levels, which makes it more and more costly to extract. The bores have to go deeper, the pumping costs are greater. And this is happening where there is commercial agriculture, such as in the Great Plains of the United States. It's also happening in areas where there is more subsistence agriculture in some of the poorer countries, or places such as the rural areas of India, where it is simply the pressure of population, which is resulting in an offtake of water which is greater than the aquifers can provide. In some parts of the world, water is now being extracted which is literally tens of thousands of years old. It's been there for a long, long time. And that simply cannot continue. So that is a major driver of change as well. Put that one together with climate change, and we have very serious issues relating to the production of food for human beings into the future. And the modelling that has been done so far is really quite concerning in terms of there being apparently no known possibility at the moment to feed a population which is projected to increase rapidly at the same time. The understanding of this is still being worked on, but something's got to give. There is going to be, it would seem, at least a decline in nutrition in several parts of the world, leading to health problems and probably earlier mortality, and in some cases just downright starvation. So here is another major change driver, obviously for the people affected, but also in terms of the markets that exist on a commercial basis for food products. Other change drivers will arise from these various effects. So we've got the degradation of the biosphere, mentioned that. We've got oil, coal, gas price increases. We've got water depletion, potable water depletion. We've got combinations of effects that result in it being more difficult, more costly to produce food, and in different places to where the populations expect it to be. And all of those effects can be expected to result in what I would call geopolitical change. That is, stresses and strains within countries and between countries as these changes take place. And so we can expect more disruption and conflict, unfortunately, than we have seen even to date. and probably in the first instance relating to water and food more than oil. Many people see oil as the issue that will result in conflict, and it probably will, but water and availability of food is likely to be there first. So here is another kind of change. On top of that again, or caused by that again, we have continual shocks and disruptions in our future to our global economic system. We've seen over the last 2-3 years just how vulnerable that system is to a shock. The financial shock resulting from credit difficulties with the so-called subprime mortgages in the United States. And it has had a huge depressive effect on the world economy. Some of us who feel that there's too much economy anyway, too much economic activity, will say that's a good thing. But nevertheless, if we're going to manage the economy into a steady state, that's not the way to do it. So it's been very damaging. And the major point here is that that shock that created so much disharmony in the economic system was actually a very small shock compared with those that we can expect to come from hikes in oil prices, spikes in energy costs, some of the larger effects of climate change, and all of the other things that I've mentioned. So we can expect our economy, global economy, and at the country and national level, to be shocked more and more over time, and it would appear that our economic system, as presently constituted, is not particularly resilient in the face of those sorts of shocks. So if we take all of these change drivers together, and I could mention others, but these are the main ones, it is my view, and the view of many others whose work we've actually called upon to review and to take on board, that all of these drivers of change will tend to occur together. And so we may have major changes in climate at the same time as huge increases in the price of oil, for example, and a reduction in the availability of potable water. So even though we talk about these as individual changes, in fact they will come at us, are going to come at us together, and they will reinforce each other. And that will take human experience outside the range of anything that has been experienced in the past, at least the past about which we have any historical records. That is the major point, that the change drivers, whether we address the sustainability issues or not, will take us outside the range of prior experience, and this will have huge effects, as yet not well understood, on our work, on the economy, on sectors. Some sectors will disappear, others may come through and grow. This will have an effect on work and employment, on recreation, and really on all aspects of human living. Frankly, we need to get ready for that, and we need to anticipate these changes and prepare for them as best we can, and mitigate their effects as best we can as well. So they mutually reinforce each other. All of these global drivers of change can be attributed to human beings living outside, or human living lying outside, the boundaries that are safe for the planet. So the boundaries of carbon dioxide, the boundaries of all of the other things have been exceeded, and so change takes place. Therefore, we need to begin to learn, and quite urgently, how to begin to live within those boundaries.
Start the debate and discussion now about economic alternatives. Stop accepting that the way we live now is something we cannot change, because we can.